Hi there. This is week 13, library special with Miss Pulliam. Hi guys. And this is for grades 3 through 5. This week's book we are not going to be reading. However, we'll talk about it's The Three Little Pigs, a story about patience. And we don't have to go through the whole story as I did with K2. We do know how important it is to have patience. And I'd like you to take a moment and think of some areas in your life where maybe you're not as patient as you could be. And I know I'm driving sometimes and there's a lot of traffic and I'm like, come on, and I'm not being that patient or waiting in line somewhere. So I'd like you guys to think about that. And the next time you're in one of those situations, if you could just tell yourself, hey, this is what I did today. It's okay. I'm not in a rush. Where am I rushing off to? I'm safe. Everything's good. I need to have patience. Okay, my friends. With that being said, we're just going to talk about the words from the story, and then we're going to get on to the Losers Club. Gadgets. I'm thinking you guys know what gadgets are. There's a song with gadgets and gizmos and whatever. Okay, I don't know. What is that song? Gadgets, gizmos. I don't know. It'll come to me later, though. All right. Anyway, gadgets, like Inspector Gadget. It's small little devices and things. Gadgets. Moss, a clump of plants. Sturdy, we know that something sturdy is firmly built. It's not going to fall over. Topple is falling over, and it's more like falling over from, top being top heavy. So something that is heavier on the top of it, and it falls over. Not like a weevil. Weevils wobble, but they don't fall down because they're more bottom heavy. These are top heavy, toppling. Okay, topple, top heavy. I like that. See, there's a way to remember it. Topple, top heavy, so it falls. I think that's going to be our word we're going to put on our list. Don't you think? I think. Okay. Clamor, to climb awkwardly. Devour, to eat greedily. And that's it. So there we go. That was the story. We zip right through that today. Boom, boom, boom. And we're going to get on to the Losers Club. I'm sorry? Right over there? Yes, exactly. Okay, so we are reading the Losers Club and we are on chapter 25. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to read a couple chapters today. Chapter 25 is called Scene After Scene. When Alec got to the club table Tuesday afternoon, Lily was already there. And so was the new kid, Jason. Nina was across the gym talking with Kent. But after what she'd said about him on the phone last night, that didn't bother Alec at all. Jason was working hard at reading, eyes glued to his book. The scared look on his face made Alec feel ashamed and very stupid. I know we don't like that word much, but they used it here. Let's see. Because this kid, him showing up like that yesterday wasn't his fault. He was just a weapon, an anger grenade that Kent had tossed across the gym. What a way to put it, huh? That's really pretty neat. And Alex saw how he had totally fallen for the trick. He had grabbed the grenade and blown himself up. Hey, Jason, he said, trying to use his friendliest voice. And we know when Alec uses that voice, he's up to no good, right? Because he's not so sweet. Okay. The kid looked like he thought Alec might jump up and come rip his arms off. Listen, Alec said, I was acting like a jerk yesterday. I don't care who sent you or why. I'm glad you're here. Jason smiled cautiously and whispered, good. Me too. Alec smiled back. And you don't have to whisper. The boy still seemed uncomfortable, so Alec asked him the question he had wanted to yesterday. You said you're in 4th grade, so have you read Because of Winn-Dixie? Jason's face opened up into a broad smile. Yeah, I love that book. I've read it. Have you read it? Good book, yes. Jason nodded. Yep, I read it. I've just about read all of them. So funny. For the next few minutes, the two of them talked about the books they liked, about the ones they kept reading again and again, and also about the books that they'd finished only because they'd had to. And Alec remembered to ask him if he could borrow his copy of A Long Walk to Water. It turned out they'd a lot in common as readers, especially in the action and adventure books department. Jason was crazy about The Call of the Wild, just like he was. Plus, he talked about another book Alec had never heard of, Under the Blood Red Sun. and now he couldn't wait to read it. That's one neat thing I love about this book is that the books that he's reading in here are all popular and they're real books. A lot of books, as you're reading things, they're making up. This is not made up. That's pretty neato. Jason said that book you had read yesterday, Hatchet. I've seen it around school a lot, but I haven't read it yet. Is it any good? Is it good? It's one of the best, really. You have to read it. In fact, here, he pulled the copy out of his backpack and slid it down the table. You should start it now. Really? Like right now? Really, Alex said, and then he smiled. It'll be your initiation into the club. And if you don't completely love it, then I'll owe you an ice cream sandwich. Awesome. Jason smiled and opened the book. Lily had been carefully minding her own business, but now she looked across the table at Jason and said, "See, I told you he was nice." And with a smile, with a happy last look at Alec, Lily went back to reading. Alec glanced toward the kickball corner again, and Nina was there, still with Kent, but it wasn't friendly now. They were almost nose to nose, and it looked tense. Then Nina turned her back on Kent and headed straight across the gym toward the Losers Club. Alec quickly looked away and reached for his bag of Cheetos. He didn't want Nina to think he'd been spying on her. Where is he? I hear my dog. Where is he? Oh, okay. I heard his thing. Okay. All right, I heard Cheetos. What was I? It was about Cheetos. He didn't want Nina to think he'd been spying on her. She sat down and pressed both her hands flat on the table, staring straight ahead at the wall. Alec could tell she was breathing hard, upset. It took her a few minutes to calm down. Then she shrugged off her backpack, pulled out a juice box, and drained it in about 5 seconds. She looked at Jason, then gave Alec a puzzled look. Alec whispered, "I apologized." And now he's reading Hatchet for the very first time. And as he said that, he had a quick moment like the one he'd had after Lily had come, feeling proud of the way he had stepped up and acted like a big brother for Jason, too, even though he had done it one day late. Nina whispered, "I'll keep quiet." She started to read, but Alec could tell she was still angry. He ripped half a sheet of paper from a notebook and wrote, "You want to talk? Maybe walk over to the drinking fountain or something." He felt scared and almost tore it up, but he wanted to find out what had happened. He folded the paper twice and tossed it down the table so it hit Nina's arm. She jumped a little, looked his way, then opened the note. She nodded at him, and they both got up and headed in the direction of the storage closet. They walked past the other club tables, turned the corner by the closet, and went on toward the water fountains. Nina didn't say anything. Asking if she wanted to talk had seemed like a good idea, but now Alec's hands began to sweat. He felt like he had to say something. So he said, "Look, I'm not trying to butt in or anything, and if you don't want—" "No," she said, "this is good. And it's not much, really. On the way into the gym, I stopped to tell Kent that I didn't want to hang out with him every single day, because now it's like he expects me to stop and talk, and he still comes over a lot to play basketball, too. So after I said that, he got mad and said, 'Well, guess what? I'm all done with you anyway. You and your stupid bookworm friends.' And then he said he was glad he didn't have to pretend that I was good at sports anymore because I'm not. And he didn't know why he ever thought I was cool in the first place." Wow. Let's think about that a second. Do you think he meant all that ugly stuff? I know Kent isn't the sweetest kid in the world, but do you think he meant all that, or do you think he said some of that because he was hurt? I think some of it because he was hurt, and he's still a meanie, but still. Okay. Alec clenched his jaw and kept his eyes on the floor. She said, "And I know it's totally stupid to let stuff like this bother me, the stuff that he says, but it does, especially what he said about the sports. So I guess that proves I'm stupid, right?" She said that last bit with a little smile, then added, "And please don't say yes. All any of it proves is how stupid he is." The fierceness in Alec's voice surprised them both. Nina said, "Well, anyway, that's all. And talking was good, so thank you." Good. "Sure, no problem," Alec said. They were only halfway down the long wall toward the water fountain. He pointed and said, "Are you really thirsty? Are you actually thirsty?" "Not really," she said. Back at the table, they sat down again. Alec wanted to pick a book and read, wanted to dive into a world with a beginning, a middle, and out there a few hundred pages in the future, a tidy, satisfying ending. I love how he put that. Except now he was the one who felt unsettled and angry. And if he felt like he wanted to get back at Kent, and not just for himself, for Nina too, and for all the kids who got bullied and bossed around day after day. It was a strong feeling, the kind that demanded action. Uh-oh. Next chapter, we're on chapter 26. It's called Duel. And a duel, we know, is a fight, a duel. Okay. Later that same Tuesday afternoon, life at the Losers Club looked very peaceful. Nina was reading Brown Girl Dreaming. Jason was deep in the Canadian forest with the boy and hatchet. Lily was swinging her legs back and forth as she read Holes, and Alec had his Cheeto-stained copy of Johnny Tremaine open on the table in front of them. By the way, I don't know if any of you guys have read Johnny Tremaine. It's great. I remember the movie when I was a kid. It's really good. Something I recommend it. It's a good read. Except Alec wasn't really reading because he was there was a furious wrestling match going on inside his head. You ever feel that way? Oh yeah. Part of him wanted to rush across the gym and tackle Kent and grind him into the wooden floor, make him pay for being so mean to everyone, especially to Nina. But he knew that would be wrong, and he also knew that Kent wasn't totally evil. Hadn't always been such a jerk. Still, somehow he turned into this creep who felt like winning was the most important thing in the world, and Alec wanted some payback. If only there was a way to get even. Alec took a mental note. Bleh. Alec took a mental tour through different books he'd read, remembering how his favorite heroes had solved their biggest problems, won their greatest battles. Courage was always important, and effort. But the characters who were only out for revenge, they usually failed. Intelligence always mattered, like being able to work out a plan or find a way to use the element of surprise. Alex suddenly sat up straight, a move that startled both Lily and Jason. He kept staring at his book, and they resumed their reading. A minute later, Alec quietly closed his book, stood up, and went and talked with Mr. Wilner. Then he walked across the gym to Mr. Jensen and said, "I'd like to play some kickball." Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Alec was never interested in doing that. Let's see what's going to happen. Mr. Jensen said, "Great, head over there with the group that's shooting baskets. They play the winner of the game that's in progress." "Okay, thanks." And just like that, Alec was officially enrolled in the Actives Games program for the afternoon. The kids on the third kickball team were all fourth and fifth graders. None of them looked very athletic. Alec picked up a basketball from a bin by the wall, but he didn't dribble around, didn't take a shot. He just watched the game at the kickball diamond. Kent's team was in the field, which meant that Kent was the pitcher. Alec had watched him pitch before. He always bowled the ball at the kicker hard and fast, straight over the plate every time. And this time, as he rolled his pitch, he barked orders at his team. "Watch for the fly ball! On your toes! On your toes!" The kicker at the plate was a fifth grade boy, and he connected. A hard grounder straight at the pitcher. Kent scooped up the ball, whipped it in a smooth arch, and nailed the kid on the left arm before he even got halfway to first base. Kent yelled, "And he's out! All right, all right, all right. One more out and we win." Now, is this kid like no sportsmanship, right? Let's see what's going to happen. The kicker at the plate was a fifth grade boy, and he connected a heart. Oh, so wait a minute. Okay, sorry. Alec had to admit it again. Kent was amazing at sports. A stray basketball came rolling along the floor toward him. Alex stopped it with his foot, and a girl came running after it to get it. "Thanks," she said, and then she paused a second. "Hi, Alec." It took him a moment to recognize her. It was Dave Hampton's little sister. "Julia, hi. I didn't know you were into kickball. That's great." "Yes," she said, "except I'm no good at it." "Well," he said slowly, "you probably already know this, but you could always join one of the other clubs." She looked at the distant tables. "Yeah, maybe, but I don't know anybody back there. At least here, I get to hang around with my friend Sarah when we get picked for the same team." Trying to sound casual, Alex said, "If you and Sarah like to read, you could join the reading club." Oops, sorry. I started, wait a minute. "You could join the reading club I started anytime you want." You have a reading club, she said. Well, it's not really mine. What's up, baby? Come here. Come on, guys. Come here. Give me one thing. Oh, look who we're reading with today. Guys, this is Duncan. I think you remember him from the last time. He's wearing his jacket because he went out for a long walk and it was cold out, huh, baby? Say hi, guys. That's my baby donkey. All right, I'm going to put you back on the bed now. Or down here. There you go. All right, sorry about that. Okay. It's not really mine, but I helped get it going. It's at the table in the back corner. We're the one with the funny name, the Losers Club. Oh, right, I heard about it. So if we joined, like, could Sarah and I read the same book and then talk about it? Alex said, sure. But are there book reports or quizzes and stuff? Nope, nothing like that. It's just reading for fun. Julie looked puzzled. So if you've got a reading club, how come you're here? Alex thought, good question. It might have been a lot easier to land one good thump on Kent's nose. Standing in the bright lights shining down on the basketball court, Alec realized this whole little plan of his was starting to smell a lot like fiction. But he said to Julia, I just wanted to play some kickball today, and when I'm done, I'm going back to reading. Because that was the plan. He said, looks like our team is almost ready to play, huh? Julia rolled her eyes. You mean ready to get beat? Kent's team always wins. Always. Kent was barking again. Let's go, let's go. Cover your bases. This kid can kick, so watch out. A tall fifth grade girl stood at the plate, and Kent was right. She connected and popped the ball way out beyond third base. But Mr. Jensen bellowed, foul ball. Ken called, okay, okay, everybody, watch for the fly ball, and here comes the pitch. The girl got her whole leg into it this time, and the ball blasted hard and high straight out over second base. Dave Hampton was there, and he ran hard, got into position, and made a clean catch. All right, great game, everybody, Kent shouted. And my team, stay right here where you are, because the next team kicks first this time. Because the next team kicks first this time. Good. Kent ran the whole show. He was the best kicker, the star pitcher, the top infielder, the team captain, the manager, and the cheerleader all rolled into one. That's kind of strange, isn't it, Duncan? And he was so busy with all his different jobs that he didn't spot Alec until the first kicker was standing at the plate. Since Alec looked bigger and stronger than any other kid on the team, they decided he should be the cleanup kicker, the fourth kid in the lineup, in case any of the first three kickers got on base. But when Kent spotted Alec from the pitcher's line, his eyebrows shot up in surprise. He trotted over to the kids by the wall, stopped in front of Alec, and shoved his chin out. What are you doing here? Playing kickball? Huh, that's a good one. The Bookworm loser wants to play some kickball. So tell me, is your team going to win? Not sure, Alex said, but I am going to score a run. I know that much. Kent laughed in his face. You score a run? Not against my team. Alex shrugged. So, would you like to make a bet about that? He almost said. Maybe an ice cream sandwich? But taunting wasn't part of his plan. Kent grinned, oozing confidence. Sure, I'll bet whatever you want. All the kids on Alex's adopted team shushed and gathered in close. It had just become clear that this was not going to be an ordinary game. Alec had already thought about this bet, but he pretended to be making it up in the moment. So, how about this? If I can score one run, then you have to come and join the Losers Club for a week. And you have to sit quietly and read the book I tell you to. And if I don't score, then I have to stay here in active games for 1 week, and you can beat me at kickball every day. Or try to. How's that? Kent nodded. Sounds great. So let's shake on it. Alec put out his hand, and Kent clamped onto it and then squeezed hard. But Alec knew this game, and he instantly squeezed back just as hard. All those hours that he had spent holding a water ski tow rope, if a kid can hang on while a 200-pound horsepower motorboat hauls him around a lake at 30 miles an hour, then he's ready for a handshake battle. As Kent felt the strength in Alec's grip, a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. For a second, Alec squeezed even harder. He had power to spare, but this wasn't about crushing the bones in each other's hands, so Alec relaxed a little. Kent pulled his hand free, and ran back to the pitcher's mound. He looked around and yelled, "Okay, champs, let's show some losers how to play kickball." The first kid kicking for Alec's team was a fourth grade boy named Eddie. He wasn't big, but he looked wiry and quick. And he stepped right up to the plate like he knew what he was doing. And he did, because he was all set up to kick toward right field, but at the last second he swiveled his shoulders and booted a nice chip shot into left field, right over the head of the girl playing shortstop. Wow. Just that fast. There was a runner at first base. And what did Alec do? Something he could never have dreamed he would do in his whole life. He jumped to his feet and started to chant, "Losers, losers, losers." And the whole rest of the team laughed and joined in. "Losers, losers, losers." The second kicker didn't do so well. It was another boy, a fifth grader, and all he wanted was to get his turn over with. He barely connected with Kent's pitch, just enough to bloop the ball up into a shallow arc, straight into the waiting arms of the girl covering second base. An easy out for the champs. Eddie tagged up at first and stayed put. Kent started his cheerleading routine from the pitcher's mound. "Hey, hey, great play, champs, way to go. Now let's..." But Alec was on his feet again, clapped his hands like some crazy fan who had escaped from Fenway Park. "Let's go, losers, let's go. Clap, clap, let's go, losers, let's go. Clap, clap, let's go, losers, let's go. Clap, clap." By the way, Fenway Park is a baseball field, and that's in Boston. Okay. The third batter was a girl, a fifth grader, and Kent yelled, "Heads up for this one and watch for a fly to shallow right field." Kent had called it correctly. The girl lunged at the first pitch and bumped a weak pop fly directly into the hands of the right fielder. No. And as Alec walked up to the plate, he realized that by now Kent must have memorized the strengths and weaknesses of every single player in the active games program. No wonder his team kept winning and winning. Then he thought, except this team has one player that Kent doesn't know at all. Me. Well, him, not me, yeah. The trouble was, Alec didn't know himself as a kickball player either. Of course, like every other kid in the school, he had played kickball lots of times in gym class and outside at recess, but he probably hadn't played in a real game since third grade. Still, he knew he was coordinated, and he also knew that his legs had gotten strong from his time cutting across the lake on a slalom ski. And of course, Kent thought he was dealing with a bookworm, a kid who never did anything more athletic than turn a page and reach for another bag of Cheetos. The truth was more like what his dad had said when they had talked that Saturday morning. Nobody can be summed up by one label. And Alec truly was kind of a sports guy, except only about a dozen people on Earth knew that, and Kent wasn't one of them. I like that. There was something in there that I want to highlight in my highlighter. You'll see my highlighter. Let me underline it. Truth was more like his dad had said, talked on Saturday morning. Nobody can be summed up by one label. I like that. Okay. And Kent wasn't one of them. So really, I'm a secret sports guy. With all these thoughts running through his head, Alex stepped into the kicker's box and looked at Kent, and then far beyond Kent. Along the back of the gym, all the club kids were sitting up on their tables like they were bleachers, facing the kickball game. The news had spread, and over in the far corner, he saw Jason and Lily and Nina waving their arms. Alec gulped. He had made himself the center of a small spectacle. A smug, snarly smile lit up Kent's face, and the captain of the champs looked around the diamond and shouted, easy out, and here we go." He delivered the first pitch, and Alec pretended to be confused. He kicked a fumbling foul ball down third base line, but that little bit of contact gave him a good feel for the ball and for the speed and strength of Kent's pitches. The ball came in fast. Kent sneered, "Ooh, that was so scary. Please don't hurt us with your dangerous kicking." Alec felt his heart pounding. He hadn't noticed it before. The kids on his bench were cheering him on, and over at first, Eddie was dancing around the base like a puppy who needed a frisbee to chase. Alec's vision sharpened, and the focus got narrower and narrower until all he could see was an 8.5-inch red ball cradled by a single hand. 8.5 inch. Oh, yeah, that is sounds right. The ball moved backward, back, and then it eased forward and slid onto the gym floor. But the ball came slowly, rolling over and over like a weightless rocket in space. So slowly that he could read the black lettering and see the little dot where the air went in. As his foot met the ball, everything snapped back to full speed. The ball took off like a flaming arrow, and Mr. Jensen yelled, "Fair ball!" By the time Alec passed first base, Eddie was rounding third and heading for home. Speeding past second, Alec saw Dave and the left fielder digging the ball out from behind the Chinese club table. His kick had reached the back wall. Dave had a great arm, but there was no way Alec was going to hold up at third base, and there was no need to have even worried. The ball didn't get back to the infield until he had crossed home plate. Eddie started the chanting this time. Losers, 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 losers. And it went on until Mr. Jensen made them stop and send their next kicker to the plate. Alec had 5 other turns, kicking during the rest of the game, and he did pretty well. 2 singles, 1 double, and 1 out, a pop fly to left field. The game went the usual 5 innings, and the champs won. Kent drove in 6 runners with 4 huge home runs. But everybody knew that the one run that mattered most had been scored back in the first inning by Alex Spencer, the Bookworm. At the end of the game, Alec went to the mound and shook Ken's hand, and this time it didn't turn into a bone-crushing contest. With no trace of meanness or sarcasm, Alec said, "Great game, really. If there was a pro kickball league for kids, you would be the MVP every season." Kent wasn't sure how to reply, and Alex suddenly felt sorry for him. Losing at anything seemed to make him sick, almost physically ill. But Kent did okay. He took the compliment and even sent a small one back at Alec. "Yeah, well, with some work you might turn into a decent player yourself." Then Alex said something he hadn't planned to. "Listen, that bet, it wasn't really fair. I had a whole game to score 1 run, and it could have happened because of errors made by other kids, which wouldn't have been your fault, you know. So don't worry about it. And besides, I had a good time out there. I haven't played kickball in a long time." Shaking his head, Kent said, "A bet is a bet, and I lost. So I'll see you tomorrow over there." And he nodded toward the back corner of the gym. Kent and his team went right into their next game, but Alec was all done with sports. Scoring a run and kind of beating Kent at his own game, he thought he was going to feel great, like Luke after he blew up the Death Star, or Robin Hood after he crushed the Sheriff of Nottingham. You want to take over? We've got a page, like 2 pages left. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to have my friend take over. Angel, if you will. Okay. But it wasn't like that because he wasn't some hero, and Kent wasn't a villain, not really. Okay, you're going to start right here as he. Okay? Here you go. Have a seat.
As he walked toward the back of the gym, there was a burst of clapping from the clubs, which made him blush and feel even worse. And at the Losers Club, it didn't let up. Lily beamed at him. "You were awesome," Jason said. "You totally killed over there." And they both looked at him like he had just won Olympic gold. Nina didn't gush, just smiled and said, "Looked like you were having fun." If she had been impressed by the way he had nailed that home run, she didn't show it, and Alec was glad. He didn't want any more attention. Right away he opened his bag and started looking for a book. Everyone got the message and went back to reading. But Alec was actually replaying everything that had just happened, moment by moment, and as he did that, the whole episode started to seem more and more like a cheap stunt and making Kent agree to sit and read with the Losers Club for a week. That felt like a mean trick, except now the joke was on him because less than an hour after Nina had pushed Kent out of her life, what he had just done, he had pulled Kent right back in 3 hours a day at the same table for 5 days, even though Alec had thought it might be good for Kent have to sit still and read. He admitted to himself that really he'd been looking for revenge and now his great plan had totally boomeranged. I'm such an idiot, which was the nicest word Alec could find for himself. Then his instincts took over and he did what he had done so many other times. He'd been upset. He reached for a book, and then one he grabbed was Charlotte's Web, and he opened up to where he'd left off 2 weeks ago, back sitting in the back seat of the minivan in a dark garage, which seemed like a moment from a different century back then. He hadn't wanted anyone to see him reading a book about a talking spider with a pig named Wilbur, but now he didn't care. He needed a story that felt simple and true, and he made himself begin to read, pushing all his other thoughts aside. For more than 20 minutes, Vernon, Wilbur, and Templeton and Charlotte blocked out all of Alec's problems and worries and fears. He probably would have kept reading up until 6 o'clock, but about 5:45 someone tapped him on the shoulder. Hi, Alec. Alec looked up, blinking as he shifted back to relax. It was Mr. Wilner. Oh, hi. Mr. Wilner said, "These are your newest club members. This is Sarah Jeffries, Julia Hampton, and Ellen Gabriel." Julia smiled and said, "Hi, Alec. So, where should we sit?"
Awesome. So now, thank you, ma'am, for finishing that for me. Can I have the sticky that goes in there? The next one's called No More Bets, chapter 27. But what great, this really went along really well. We had some neat things happening here. Remember at the beginning of this story, Alec, you have to have two people to have a club. So we all know that Alec was like, look, I just need one other person, and he found Nina. And he made a friend, and they had a lot in common, and they both love to read. So he opened a club. Now all of a sudden, he's opening up the club to other people because he's starting to see that there's some really good people out there, and that every other people see how Kent is, and people don't want to be around that, and he feels bad. So he feels like a big brother to a lot of people. Pretty cool stuff. I like it. All right. On that note, we were talking about reading aloud, which is always very important. It's important to read aloud. Take your time, read to the mirror, read to your pets. Send me pictures. You know, I love pictures of you reading to your pets or siblings or whomever. Come here, here's my pet. You saw my pet. There you go outside again. Um, so keep reading, and over break, make sure you guys have something you're going to be reading as well. And one thing I really, I have to say again, I love about this book is that there's so many really good stories in here that he mentions, and most of them I have read or we do have, or I go, that's probably a really good book too because they're all very popular ones. All right. On that note, I wish you all a good evening, and hold on a second. Come here. And Duncan says, keep reading. All right. See you soon, my friends. Do, 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 do.